She sat on our Zoom call with tears in her eyes and said, "I'm just so tired. I don't even know where to start." And I knew exactly how she felt because I've been there. And if you're listening right now, chances are you have too. Overwhelm hits us hardest when we care the most. And if you're running a business, you're leading a team, you're showing up for your clients, your family, your vision, and yet somehow it never feels like enough. Today, what I want to give you is a 3-step rescue plan, a strategy I used with a client just this past week to help you stop the spiral and reclaim your calm. Welcome to Female Founder Unplugged, the show where we cut through the noise and have a real, raw conversation about what it takes to build and scale a successful business as a female entrepreneur. I'm Lindsay White, people strategy expert, leadership coach, and fellow founder. And I know firsthand the challenges of scaling sustainably and staying connected to your passion along the way. This podcast is for ambitious women just like you, seasoned founders and CEOs navigating the challenges of leadership, team building, and sustainable growth. In each episode, we'll dive into those topics that are most important to you as a female founder. You'll hear honest, no BS conversations about building, growing, and leading a team and culture so that you can grow without losing yourself in the process. Because let's be real, entrepreneurship can feel isolating, and leadership doesn't come with a roadmap. If you've ever struggled with the pressure of running a business, felt overwhelmed by growing your team, or wondered, how do I scale without sacrificing my vision and my purpose, you're in the right place. Let's get unplugged. My friends, welcome to the Female Founder Unplugged. I'm so excited to have you with me this week. We are talking about what to do when you're completely overwhelmed. And what I've got for you is my 3-step rescue plan. And this is something that not only do I use with my clients, I used this as recently as last week with a client that was in tears and feeling extremely overwhelmed with all the things that were happening in their life and their business. It's what I use as well, because I am just like you. I get to the point where I am completely over the top, overwhelmed. There are so many things going on, and we are always carrying a lot. There's a lot of emotional energy. There's a lot of physical asks. There's a lot of tasks and opportunities and things that we need to be doing and saying and feeling and experiencing and actioning. And it just gets to be too much. So let's start right here. First and foremost, overwhelm does not mean you're weak. And I'm going to say that again for the kids in the back. Being overwhelmed does not mean that you are flawed or weak. It means that you've been carrying too much for too long with too little support. And I work with some of the most incredibly brilliant, powerful, unbelievably expert female founders every day. And you know what they all have in common? They all hit a wall. We all do that. We all get to the point where there's not much more we can carry. And this happens not because we're not capable, but because we're too capable. And I know that sounds very ironic, but the reason we get to this place of overwhelm is because we can carry a lot. We can manage an incredible amount of work and tasks and responsibility. But the problem is when we're holding everything together, making the decisions, building these businesses, protecting our cultures, growing our teams, keeping the money flowing, building the strategy, creating the execution plans. And when all that piles up, along with the fact that we are partners, wives, mothers, sisters, aunties, besties, all of the things that we carry in our personal life, we're deeply involved in our communities. We love to be a part of social organizations. The reality is at some point, something's got to give. This becomes leadership fatigue. And if you're feeling it, I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you and you're not broken. And I want to level with you. I want to be perfectly honest because this is what being unplugged is about. I actually had that moment just this last week. I came back from holidays. I spent 2.5 weeks traveling. I was in 3 or 4 different places. I didn't, sleeping in different beds. That never works for me. And I came back after Labor Day weekend and I felt completely disconnected, totally untethered, supremely overwhelmed. So many things to do, so many accountabilities that I just sat down for a while and I knew I had to pick back up. And I felt completely out of control. So if you are at a breaking point, if this is where your feeling is untethered and overwhelmed, this is the moment where we get to shift. And this is the podcast where I'm going to talk you through actually how to do that. But it's deeply, deeply important. And I want all of you to just hear my words. This is not your fault, and there's nothing wrong with you. So what I'm going to do now is talk you through this 3-step rescue plan. And this is the process I use with my clients. I used it with a client last week. It's the process I used to talk myself back out of my own space of overwhelm. It's very simple, but it's also very effective. So step number 1, we start by grounding ourselves. This is about presence, not about productivity. And what's really at stake here is that we actually get into panic mode and we are hyperventilating. We're not breathing. We are really activating that amygdala that's in the back of our head. That's the fight, flight, or freeze space. And the truth is, when that amygdala is activated, we're not talking higher level thought. The amygdala is about survival, not about problem solving. And so the first thing we want to do is get grounded. And the best way to do that is to step away from your desk, your laptop, your desk, your computer, is to actually step outside if you can. And some people live in places where they can be outside all year round. I live in Canada. That's not possible at moments in time. But put yourself in a different situation. Take yourself out of the stressful situation. And the most important thing is to breathe deeply. So even if that means just rolling back from your desk, what I want you to do is put both feet on the ground, sit up straight in your chair, and do some deep breathing. Put your hands on your stomach. Breathe all the way down into the bottom of your lungs. Feel your lungs fill right up. And then I want you to push that air right back out. Now, for some people, you may have experience with box breathing. So that's breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. You're just building a box. That works beautifully. For some of you, you may want to breathe in through your nose and push it out your mouth. That works beautifully as well. Whatever version of this works for you, what you want to do first is just do the breathing, ground yourself, and then put your hand on your heart and say, I am feeling really overwhelmed. It's because I care so much about the vision, about the dream I'm building, about the clients. I care really deeply. And I'm allowed to pause. Okay? So just step away, breathe, and acknowledge that you are feeling overwhelmed. That's how we get grounded. So I told my client last week when we did this, you can't solve the chaos with more chaos. Like allowing your fight, flight, or freeze response to actually try and help you untangle an overwhelming situation is just bonkers, right? Because you aren't able to problem solve. It's your prefrontal cortex, the space behind your forehead that actually allows you to think at a higher level. That can't be activated. When your amygdala is working overtime, your prefrontal cortex isn't doing it. So what this step 1 does, this moment of grounding does, is allows us to calm those parts of the brain that are overactivated so we can reactivate the parts that are going to actually help us get more intentional, get some critical thinking, solve some problems. And so once we did this with the client, they weren't panicked anymore. They weren't frozen anymore. They started to feel more calm right from these first few moments. right? Just being still and breathing and acknowledging that I am feeling overwhelmed and it's because I'm so passionate about this. So the stillness actually allowed us to move forward more intentionally. And this is the key here. Your saboteur is going to tell you that you need to move quicker, not slower. And what I'm telling you is the truth is exactly the opposite. So step 2 is what we do is we want to identify where the fire is. And what I mean here is that everything feels really urgent when you're in panic mode. But usually very few things are, right? So just like the metaphor of going into a house fire, there's lots and lots of smoke. We got to identify where the actual fire is. So what I asked my client last week and what I had to ask myself is if there's one thing I need to solve today that's actually going to give some relief here, what is that? What is the one thing? And my client responded, well, I have a team member that's underperforming and I know I'm avoiding the conversation. Okay, boom. That's where the fire is. That's what's really underpinning a lot of the stress and the overwhelm is that we have someone that's underperforming and a conversation that we are avoiding. Okay, now we can start to solve the real problem. This is exactly the kind of work we do in the LPC Accelerator program because, of course, the L stands for leadership. And if we're not working on ourselves as a leader, if we're not preparing ourselves to lead at that next level, to be the CEO in our own business, we are not doing our business any favors. So if you are ready to do this work and you are ready for a program where you get to do some one-on-one, have some great strategies, find the right tools, and be a part of the right community, the LPC Accelerator might be the right program for you. Registration is open now. You can check out all of the great details in the link below and send me a DM if you have any questions. So many of us are overwhelmed because we're avoiding something. Now, that's not true all the time. I mean, often our to-do lists are like our arm's length long. But if there is something like these difficult conversations that we are avoiding, those are very tricky. They cause a lot of stress. Maybe it's a hiring decision. Maybe it's some piece of work that you know you need to delegate and you're holding on to. Maybe it's that budget that you need to get to. What is the one thing that you are avoiding that is causing a great deal of the overwhelm? So what did we do here with the client? We wrote it down. We put 15 minutes towards actually outlining what the problem was and what the resolution needed to be. And then we created a very brief outline to handle it. We did all of that somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes. We didn't actually put a lot of time to it. Now, the reality is that was the framework of the solution. There was more work to be done and certainly a difficult conversation to be had. But actually, once we narrowed it down, we identified what was the burning fire, the overwhelm really started to dissipate. So let me ask you, what's your fire? Don't go making a big, long to-do list. What I want you to think about is what's the today list. So here's what my coach told me many years ago, and I still use today. We really can only get probably 3 big things done in a day. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but actually 3 really important actionables. So, and one of those should be personal. So that's setting up your own massage appointment. That is setting up that doctor's appointment, again, that you've been avoiding. All right. So what is the today list? Maximum 3 things. And that burning fire, that goes at the top of the list. Now we have some insight. Now we have some control. Now we have an opportunity to reconnect with what's really important. And that leads to step number 3. What you need is support, not solutions. right? You don't need someone to tell you how to do this. Although here I am giving you 3 steps. You probably are thinking, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, Lindsay. But what you need is someone to actually help you get back into a better rhythm. You don't need another to-do list. What you need here is a lifeline. You need a coach. You need someone who can support you in sorting out what is the most important that really needs to get done. My mother would say, picking the pepper from the fly ship, because when we're overwhelmed, it all looks important. It all looks urgent. But when we have someone that we can actually sort through all of these things with, someone who can ask us great questions, someone who can help us reconnect to our values, someone who can say, hey, how does this help build your vision? That's what's really key. This is where working with a coach can be super duper valuable. And the truth is, it's where most founders fail because we try to fix it all on our own. So you can see where this becomes a bit cyclical, right? Because we are trying to work through this enormous to-do list, all these accountabilities, and we're trying to do it all by ourselves, and we're really feeling the heat. So what my client needed last week and what I needed this last week was not another ClickUp board or Asana board. What they needed was someone to really connect with them and really help them see and feel and experience the overwhelm in a way that they felt deeply, deeply connected to. And then to help them see that they're not alone. And that's what I'm doing for you here today. You are not alone. I feel this overwhelm too. And I told my client last week, you're not alone in this. I am right here. You don't have to prove anything to me about how much you can carry. I see how strong you are. And I see you if you're listening. I see how strong you are. And I also need to say that to myself. Hey, Lindsay, I see how strong you are. But that doesn't mean you're going to be able to carry everything. So I've already talked about that support can look like a coach. Hi, call me. Happy to help you. Let's connect. This can look like your partner or a spouse at times. Sometimes that's tricky. I mean, for me, my spouse is incredibly supportive, but he works in the corporate world and sometimes there isn't a parallel between being an entrepreneur and being in the corporate world. It could be a really great friend. And I'm really lucky. My best friend is also a coach. So I can go to her and say, I need coaching. I need help. I also have some incredible business besties where I can message or call and say, I am really struggling. Like, I am not okay today. Do you have some time? Can we connect? Those people can be incredibly valuable. Maybe you have a mentor, someone who has walked the path, and you could say to them, I'm really struggling here. You know, if you have the kind of team that you can reach back to, then you could say, I'm struggling with this and I need help with delegation. I need help figuring out what's the next thing to do. That, I got to tell you, if you have the right team, being vulnerable in that way with them to say, I'm having trouble here, can you help, will actually create more connection, more trust, and get them more deeply engaged because they need to know sometimes that we're not superwoman. So those are all places that you can look for support, not necessarily solutions. Nobody's here to tell you how to solve your problem. You know how to do that. But what you need is just a little support. And so with my client, the moment we started to talk about what this might look like, you could see the physical shift. Her shoulders dropped, her face lightened. You could see the weight being lifted. So my friends, I say this to you at the same time I say this and try and internalize it for myself. Support doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. Asking for help is an act of courage. And I want you to know that there's lots of places for you to go. So let's just really land this and make sure we reframe it in the right way. Overwhelm is actually a signal, not a sentence. It's a signal that your systems, your support, your strategy, like that what you're doing isn't working and it needs a reset. It is not a failure. It is an indication. It is data, if you will. It's also a chance to realign, right? That's what I did last week. I spent some time and reconnected with my vision, my mission, my values, what's most important to me and why. I really sat with my purpose, and that is to be the high voltage extension cord that connects you to your inner brilliance. And when I really sat with those things for a few moments, that was really meaningful for me. It really helped me get a grip on what's most important. I had a chance to breathe, and it really helped me reconnect, right, to what was the fire and what were the supports that I needed to get after it. This, my friends, is an opportunity for you to redefine how you lead, to stop carrying it all alone, to rethink what are the pieces that as the most senior leader in your business, as the CEO, that you are accountable for, and really start to reevaluate, where's my team in this? How can I engage them? Where do I need to delegate? Who is leaning into the work? Because you're building something really powerful, and you were never meant to build it all by yourself. Having a strong team and support system is critical to helping you scale your business in a way that is meaningful and fulfilling and joyful and also sustainable. My friends, if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, I want to say again, I totally get it. This is exactly why I recorded this episode. I have been feeling super overwhelmed myself. And the important thing is that you don't stay in that space and that you know that you're not alone. So if you are feeling this, if this is the season for you where you're feeling quite overwhelmed, send me a DM with that word, overwhelm, on Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're listening to this. And what I'll do is I'll send you my free worksheet, From Overwhelmed to In Control. It has these 3 steps and some great, powerful questions for you to ask yourself, the reflection. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's exactly what I use with my clients. And I know that it'll be something that you will find incredibly valuable in these moments of overwhelm. You'll be able to use it over and over again. And that's what's really important. So here's the thing. You don't need to do more to be worthy. You don't need to push harder to prove yourself. You are already powerful, and now it's time to lead from that place. This is a leadership power move, my friends. So let's get you back in the driver's seat of your business and your life. Until next time, lead with heart, grow with purpose, and stay high voltage. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Female Founder Unplugged. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with me on Instagram at High Volt Leadership and send me your questions or let me know your biggest takeaway. Looking for more strategies on scaling your business, building a powerhouse team, or leading with confidence? Head over to highvoltageleadership.ca or follow me on LinkedIn for exclusive content, resources, and special offers just for listeners. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and remember, the real magic happens when you're unplugged.